Hi, AJ.
Hi.
How are you?
Very hot. Very, very, very hot.
Yeah. Well, enjoy it while you can. I know how you love the heat. Not.
Hi, Indrani.
Hi.
Hi, Indrani. I'm Jeff.
Hi, Jeff. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. You?
I'm excellent. Thank you.
Good.
Hey, Linda.
Hi, Linda.
Hello, I'm sorry. I'm always so used to having mute on. It just comes up with mute and no picture.
You
Hello.
can change that in your settings,
Hey, Laura.
Hi, guys.
Laura.
Jeff, I'm so glad you're here.
Me too. Me too. No kids. No, not in the car. And yeah.
My family is coming back from Cape Cod right now, so soon. But I had 2.5 days.
Get a lot done.
That's all I did, and now I'm acutely aware of. I didn't water the plants. I have dishes in the sink.
Annie.
And I had to text my wife and be like, please, I promise I'll do it. Not that she would be mad, but just it's not nice to come home, to a house where there's a bunch of wilted flowers and dishes in the sink.
That's my life.
Oh gosh. I'm sorry about the lighting, guys, but I'm in the only part of my house that is cool enough to stand to be in. So it has to be here today.
That's a nice.
You should come up a few hours.
I don't know what it says about me that I put a second air conditioner upstairs, but in our son's room and not in my office.
Because you're a mom.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Well, it gets rid of the complaining.
Yeah.
Right.
About that subject.
Yeah. So we have about a minute left. We'll see. I know that both Susans cannot join us today. I think, I'm hoping others will be here. I can't remember. I think maybe Andrea said she couldn't. Oh yeah, Andrea can't join.
I think she said she'll be late.
Well, that's right. She'll be late. So we'll just wait one more minute and let people get here.
Okay.
Anyone else having a heat wave?
Yeah, we are.
I live in Texas. You don't get to ask that question. Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty much what Laura told me yesterday. She's like, what do you mean you turn your air conditioning off?
Yeah, really. I mean, that's just rubbing it in our face. I wake up and it's already 99 degrees. I go to sleep and it's 98. It's cooler. Yes. Cold.
Well, it's still in the 80s.
You're in the 80s?
Mm-hmm.
That's good, though.
I'm happy with 80s. Much better than 60s.
Jeff, where you live, we usually get that weather about 3 days later.
Yeah. So we had a storm go through, which you guys may have gotten already, right?
No, I think it's coming.
It's coming. And then it's been in the 90s the last 2 days. Today it's gonna hit 90, and then we're supposed to get a front, and it's gonna cool off again. So yeah.
Well, I just got a message from Tom saying he's in a meeting and isn't sure when he can get on the call. I know Brooke usually listens to the replay because she works at NYU, and there's Gail. Who else is?
Hello.
Oh, Linda Yu is here, and Tina too. I just didn't see your faces, so I didn't know you were there. All right, we can start. Woohoo! So I just want to say how thrilled I am to see you guys working on Core Message and helping each other. And, if you have a core message now that you feel good about or somewhat good about, you know what you have now that you didn't have before. You can talk about it. You can have a conversation with people about the book you're working on. You can test it. You can start organizing your content, which is what we're going to talk about today. But I just want to acknowledge that this is actually a big step, and that, you know, you're doing this really important work that without it means you end up going the long way around the block. So excellent. I'm so glad you guys are supporting each other in the Facebook group. That I can't tell you how happy it makes me to see that. Also, I answered a bunch of Andrea Lee's questions that were in response to, she watched the replay of Thursday's training and had a bunch of questions. So check out those answers. And then Laura is going to, now that we have more questions, Laura's going to start the Q&A roundup for us this week. So if you can't find questions, it'll be a centrally located place for you to find all the questions and answers in case you need to look at them at another date. But that's totally fine. If you guys want to hit me with a bunch of questions in the group, I will happily answer them. So it's fine. A lot of the questions I get are for things that we're going to do later. So, but I don't mind answering anyway. We'll go into it in deeper later. And again, for those who weren't here, I'm sorry that it's my lighting. I have to sit here because otherwise I will be a puddle at the end of this call. So, 'cause my house was built in 1908. I have window units. This is it. I would be sitting next to the window unit or on it if I could, but then you couldn't hear me at all. So here I sit. All right, so today we're going to talk about outline. And before we do that, I just want to say you are going to change it. Okay? You are going to move stuff around. You are going to make discoveries as you write and say, oh, no, that's this is that. All of that's normal. It's not set in stone. And so just know that going into this, that it doesn't have to be perfect on your first try or your fifth try or any of that. We're just trying to wrangle this content in a way that makes it super accessible for your ideal reader. Okay? So it's going to take a minute. Oh, who just joined it? Oh, Jamila. Hey, Jamila.
Hey, we're here.
All right. So I'm going to switch over to PowerPoint unless anyone has any questions they want to ask first. We're good?
You're going to mute us?
I'm muting you. I'm doing it. Mute all. Mute all of you. So the only person I wasn't able to mute is Jamila. So maybe, Jamila, you can mute yourself. I don't know why it's not letting me. And I'm going to switch to share screen. Thank you for your patience while I do this. Okay. I'm going to make you minimize you guys. Okay. Okay, so this is week 3, and this is the course we're talking about. The class we're doing right now is to create a just right book outline. And what I mean by just right is just right for your reader, okay? So it doesn't mean compare yourself to every other book that you love, compare yourself to the top 3 books on your list or your competitors. It means the only point of doing this outline, the only way that you're going to structure this outline is around what your ideal reader needs. So on this call, we're going to talk about outline and also organizing your stuff. So all of you have stuff. Now, some of it might be, so you haven't downloaded it from your brain yet. Some of it might be in all sorts of different places. But you've got it. You have stories. You have your stories, other people's stories, what I would call case studies, which are slightly different, and we're going to talk about next week. You've got your research. And by research, I mean not just studies, research studies and statistics, but maybe you have swipe files of things that you find are super interesting from other people that you somehow want to incorporate into the book, but you're not sure how. And then you have your key teaching points, and under that, exercises usually related to them. So that would be action steps or things you want people to practice, for example. So you've got a lot of stuff. I want to clarify key message and teaching points. So this is what your reader must know in order for you to deliver on your promise. So you've got a lot of content. You know the sort of main things you want to say. That's what this is, the main things you want to say. But I want you to reframe that and think about it as this is what they have to know, right? So, for example, let's say I was writing a book about writing a top 3 book. By now, you've been through enough of this course that you can figure out what some of my key message and teaching points would be, right? So a key message for me is reader first, last, and always. A key message for me is your core message is the foundational truth for your book, right? A key message would be about, maybe if we do the business side of it, would be timelines, right? Don't rush to publish, right? So I'm not explaining all of, there's a lot of content that goes under that, but that's a key message, something that you have to know so that you can write and publish a top 3 book, right? So you have those. That's what I mean by that when I say key message. So it's not all the little things, but more like the main categories of things that people need to know. So fortunately, because of the great work you guys have done so far, you now have the tools to filter your stories, key message and teaching points, and your research so that it becomes then your book, because you're not going to use all of it. And the filters you did in your homework. You did ideal reader, core message, promise to the reader, right? So let's take stories. You've got a story that you want to share, and then you can put it through the filter, right? The filter of these 3 questions. Does this story serve my ideal reader? So how might a story serve an ideal reader? If it was affirming to the reader, right? If it was something they could relate to, so that something that didn't make them feel alone, something that they could just connect to on some level, right? So how would your story support your core message? So, it proves that it's true. So you have a story that illustrates what you're saying, right? How might a story help you deliver on promise? For example, let's say let's say you have for me, if I'm writing this mythical book, which by the way, I'm not doing at all ever, but if I was writing a top 3 book and I wanted to use my pal Mike Michalowicz as an example of what's possible, right? I could tell a piece of that story that helped me deliver on the promise, so that I'm able to illustrate and prove to readers that it's possible. So often we need stories for social proof, right? So it's not just you. That doesn't always work. It's I'm thinking of Jeff, who's writing a parable. I'm thinking of Indrani's story. You may not be using other people's story as examples in those books, but your story, right? There are pieces of your story that help you deliver on the promise. Also research, kind of a no-brainer, right? Is it research that supports your ideal reader? Is it research that validates them? Is it research that helps them to feel seen? Is it research that might inspire them? Does the research support your core message? A lot of times you are going to use research to support your core message. You've got statistics or somebody or a study or something else that you've done, a survey you've done, something that supports what you're trying to say. You have research that helps you deliver on the promise. So it's maybe aspirational research. And that you have to put it through that filter, because there's some things you might want to say, but it doesn't necessarily fit. That's going to go somewhere else. So it's important to ask yourself these questions as you're sorting through your content. Again, key message teaching points. Does it serve my ideal reader? I just gave you an example. Reader first, last, and always. Totally, absolutely serves all of y'all, okay? That was really beneficial. It supports my core message, yes, 100%. Does it help me deliver on the promise? Yes, absolutely. So I know that's something that I'm keeping. You need to do the same thing with your key messages and teaching points, the stuff that everyone has to know. Do they really have to know it? Does it really serve them? Does it really support your core message? And does it really help you deliver on the promise? Super simple, but it's a filter that works so that you can then decide if the content that you have, or the content that you want to gather, or the content that's in your brain is really going to be useful for this project. It doesn't mean it won't be useful for other things. Oh, and look, and there's one of my key teaching points: reader first, last, and always. That was a total coincidence, I promise. So when we're focusing on outline, we always need to ask, what structure is going to serve my reader best, right? So, this also can pertain to length, for example, of a book. This could pertain to how short or long your chapters are. An example might be if you have super busy readers who can only read in between, or for instance, moms sitting and waiting in dentist's office. Maybe they only can read a little bit at a time. That might affect your structure and how many chapters you have, et cetera, et cetera. And also, it affects how you structure it. So there are different ways to structure a book, but basically, for your purposes, it comes down to two main ways, okay? You've got process and principles. So process is when you have a process, a system, that you take people through to show them how to do something, right? That process is going to deliver on the promise, okay? Or you have principles. Maybe you're not doing a how-to type book, but you have key principles that's going to help people make a shift that they need so that you can deliver on the promise. I'm going to sound like a broken record about delivering on the promise, because that's the whole function of the rest of your book, right? So maybe your book is process oriented, maybe it's principles. If it's process, it's pretty simple. You're going to break down the process. First this, then this, then this, then this. If it's principles, then you simply are going to present them in a way that the reader needs to receive them. So you're starting from where they are. What might they need to know first, but it doesn't necessarily mean an action step they're doing first, right? First, they need to understand this, and then this, and then this. And sometimes there isn't, it doesn't matter too much, but you'll find that, I really need them to understand this thing before I show them this thing. So the book I just wrote with Mike, Clockwork, that's all process. It's how to. So obviously we're sharing a core message in the beginning, and there are principles that we have, but it's structured like a process, right? First do this, then this, then this, then this. Whereas, say, the 4 agreements, that's principles, right? There are 4 of them in the book. So, they're presented in an order that makes sense to the author. Hopefully they were considering readers and what should be first. Some books that we've talked about, for instance, one of my top 3, The War of Art, that's principles, You can take a look at the books that you love and other books on your desk, and you'll be able to quickly identify which one they are. So outlines are not that complicated. This is basically what you might have. You might not even have all these things. It's been a long time since I was asked to ghost a forward, which is a thing. Ghosting forwards, ghosting endorsements, ghosting tweets. It's all ghosted so many times. But your book, you may want to forward if there's somebody that can, with credentialed or somebody of note, that you want to introduce your book that adds cachet and credibility, you may choose to have that. If you don't need that, then you don't need to forward. It's not a mandatory piece, right? You definitely need an introduction, and we are going to talk about that later. You tell my clients, write it last or at least much later in the process. So we're not going to start with that. Then you have your chapters, and a typical book in the genres we're all working in has 10 to 12 chapters. That's not written in stone. You could have a bunch of short little chapters. You could have, and so then you may end up with 16 or 20 chapters. It just depends. But on average, you might end up with a couple extra. But then you have your close. So some people call this a summary. I never do. We're going to talk about it in another class. But it's basically, my view of it is a rally, right? Because this is what we're trying to do. We're trying to write something that's transformational. So we want to create something that's not about summarizing all the content, but empowering the reader to realize what they now know, what they now can do, what's possible for them now that they've finished reading your book. So that's your close. Now, the rest of it you may not have. These are not mandatory pieces. You might include resources. We're going to talk about that a little later, but you might have resources printed in your book. And then, I am a big advocate of also including resources online where your readers can then go and grab stuff for free, which helps you with reader engagement and capturing emails and so forth. But you may also choose to have some in the back of the book. You may also choose to have further reading. You may want to put acknowledgments. And then I definitely recommend that you have some sort of offer to connect. So not something super promotional, but a way for readers to find you and an action that you want them to take to find you, right? So maybe you want them to go to a specific place on social media to get you. Maybe you have other books and you want to include those in some sort of ad as well. So, this is basically it. But again, it's about being in service to your reader. If your reader needs the resources, put them in there. For instance, Indrani has a book that has already sent a manuscript over that has references to certain hotlines and other resources. Those could be in the back of the book, for example. So your chapter 1, for the most part, and I hedge my bets here because there's always exceptions, but for most of you, your chapter 1 is the place that you are going to declare your core message and your promise to readers. Yes, you are going to put that in your intro as well, but this is where you're really going to lay it out. This is you stating the case, okay? This is you stating the case, and this is you making the big promise, all right? So after that, though, the whole rest of it is to deliver. So every other piece of content is then now geared toward delivering on the promise. And in doing that, you also support the core message. So here's some Post-its. So the reason I'm sharing this is because, well, actually, I want to back it up to this slide. So in your materials that Laura sent out yesterday, I think it was last night, I made you a master doc. So I'm super simple. I've been doing this for the same system for 14 years. This is basically poor man's Scrivener, but I will tell you I've been doing it since before Scrivener became a thing. So it was just my solution. And now you can do kind of the same thing in Scrivener, but I still stick with my super simple way in Microsoft Word. So what I made you was, I call it a master doc. So all I do is super simple. Once I know what my sort of rough outline is, again, mindful of the fact that it might change, I then create a Word doc that has a place for introduction, and then I do a section break, and then I do chapter 1 and a section break, and keep going until the close, right? And then what I do is I take any content that fits because I've put it through the filter, right? That I know that it serves my ideal reader, supports my core message, delivers on my promise. And by the way, it doesn't have to do all those things. It just, you know, you've got to hit one of those. I take the content and I just dump it into the chapter where I think it's supposed to go. It is not a fancy way of doing things, but it works for me because how I like to work is when I sit down to write, I like to take a chapter, know that all my content is there, and then I can just access it immediately as I write. So I sent one to you that you can use. You can dump your content into it if you want to, or if you prefer, you may want to use Scrivener. You may want to dump all your stuff into different folders in Dropbox like we talked about last week. You could easily make a folder for each one of your chapters, or even just your teaching points if you aren't sure what order the chapters go in yet. So there's, if you're doing analog, get yourself an accordion file, label the sections, dump the papers in, you know, whatever works. But I did send you the master doc if that might be useful to you. And if anyone has questions about that later, we can go over that. So I want to take you through an exercise that I put all my clients through. And it's not even that, I mean, almost all writers or writing coaches have a Post-it system. So mine is sort of rooted in my background in playwriting. I haven't talked about that much, but how I got my start was playwriting when I was 17. And that was my first gig at 17, but I was writing plays long before that. And I took a lot of classes over the years, as us theater folk do, with other theater folk. And one of my teachers was Melanie Marnich. She went on to become famous for writing for Big Love and shows like that. So Melanie, when she was still in her little studio apartment in Minneapolis, taught me this system, which I have now adapted for books, okay? So when I learned it as a playwright, what it was we would take the scenes, and she had us take moments we'd take each scene of a play, and she had us take moments and assign sort of feelings, right, to the moments, and then put them, you know, so if it was a big intense moment, it might be a red Post-it. If it was a light moment, it might be yellow. And then write a beat for the scene. So a beat is, you know, certain section, a little moment, right? And then we would put all the Post-its and line them all up in order and look for sort of the waves of feeling, right? So that was her way. It was a very interesting, cool way to do things, to see where maybe you had emotions going flippity-flop and or if your whole play was so angry, you know, it was a good visual. So I've now adapted that. Don't worry, I'm not going to make you do feelings. Although that would be interesting. I adapted it for books. And this is what I used to do when I was ghostwriting, and then I taught my clients how to do it. So it's pretty simple. You use different colored Post-its for different types of content. Okay, so again, you've got stories, key messages, teaching points, you've got research. You probably also have action steps and exercises, resources, tips, quotes. So many authors have quotes they want to use. You've got all your stuff. This is sort of what it looks like. I should grab an actual, I'm so worried about protecting intellectual property that I didn't pull any of my client. I should make one for you, and then I won't be worried about it. So this is this exercise and how it works. Now, keep in mind that this is when you have some idea of your outline. If you're not sure of the order, it's okay. Don't sweat it. But basically, your main teaching points are probably a chapter, right? So again, going back to my example, If I could easily write a whole chapter on core message, right, in a book about writing a top 3 book. So that might be chapter 2, right? Oh, my reader first, last, and always, maybe that's my core message for my whole book. So that's chapter 1. And then core message is chapter 2, kind of like how I'm actually doing the course, right? And maybe I have a chapter then on promise, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So if you don't know the order that your key teaching points are in, that's okay. If you aren't sure exactly of your outline, that's okay too. But this exercise is easier if you do have a kind of rough outline. So this isn't the first thing you're going to do, right? This is next. But I still want to share this exercise with you. So this is what you do. You choose a color for each type of content. So maybe your yellow Post-its are stories, and your research is pink, and you decide you're going to have action steps. So that's going to be blue, whatever. You just decide what it is. Then on the Post-its, you describe the content. I'm talking just enough for you to know what it is, right? So, and this is a tip, make it super legible. I have terrible handwriting, and sometimes I'm looking at my Post-its, like, what the heck did I mean by that? So, if you have you write this, you've got this story about the little red wagon, or you have the research about women-owned businesses, or you have that article from Tim Ferriss that you think somehow you can use, right? So then Tim Ferriss article, red wagon story, that's all you need to write on the Post-its. So then on your wall, you're going to make a Post-it version of your outline. So either horizontally or vertically, you'll take intro, chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, right? And so I like to do it across. And then once you have all your Post-its, your color Post-its, you then place those underneath, or if you're doing it, you can go across, it's fine. You place it where you think it goes, okay? So then pretty soon you have, for chapter 1, chapter 3, chapter 7, whatever, you've put all your content that you think you have or that you want to gather, and you put it all there. And then when you step back, you can kind of see, just like in the playwriting exercise, where it's imbalanced, right? Oh, look, in chapter 3, I have 5 Post-its with research, 2 key teaching points, and no stories. I have, because really you want to have a combination. Now, some of you may not have research in every chapter. It depends on if it's something that's really going to support your reader and support, or rather serve your reader and support your core message, et cetera, et cetera. But you want to see, okay, I have no stories, or all my stories are at the end, or all my stories are at the beginning. What you want is a balance. So you can see pretty easily, because you use the color, you can see, wow, okay, I've got no action steps at all, and I really wanted them. You can tell then just by looking. Sometimes it's good to get that visual. The other cool thing about this exercise is, because they are Post-its, you can move them. So then if you're a visual person, becomes much easier than staring at a printed, an outline in Word, right? So you can then move your Post-its where you want them to go. Oh, that doesn't go there, that goes here. You can just, put it where it needs to go. So that's my super simple system that you will actually also, you'll probably play with it for a while, but I wanted to teach it to you. So your homework is to send me a draft of your outline. And yes, you absolutely can do that this week. I know it seems daunting, but you can do it. Now, you may need one-on-ones with me. You may need some further support, but you just need to remember, okay, I'm going to state my case in chapter 1, and the rest of it is either the process to deliver on the promise, or the principles that I need to share to deliver on the promise, okay? And then, if you're up for it, grab some Post-its and start your content inventory. Start making note of where it is. If you don't want to use Post-its, you could use color index cards. If you feel you must write more, that's one way you could do it too. All right. So let me stop share. Let me unmute you. Oh, and there's Lee. Okay, so who has questions?
I have a question, Jeff. So if we have a lot of, like where I'm at, I have a whole lot of content that's out there. Should I back up and do Post-its to mark what that stuff is, or are we at a different stage?
Well, since you're working on your parable, I think you should do the exercise.
Okay.
Because you're changing your structure.
Right.
Yeah, I think it's worth doing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Anyone else? Gail.
Real basic. What's the difference between a foreword and an intro?
So the foreword isn't written by you.
Okay, that's it.
Well, it's someone who's saying, "Hey, this person's awesome, and what they have to teach is awesome, and I'm a credentialed human or an also awesome person, and let me introduce this person to you and all their awesomeness." You know, when I did Toilet Paper Entrepreneur with Mike Michalowicz, he was very resistant to any sort of traditional rules of publishing, and that has changed. But we couldn't get a foreword. No one knew him. I mean, it was like you couldn't get anybody. So I said, your whole thing is basically like F it to the rules and all of that. Why don't I write you a foreword, and you can say, I'm going to write my own damn foreword, and that'll be kind of like your shtick. And we did that. We did that in that book. But you know what? You don't need one. This is not a mandatory thing. If there is somebody in your field that your readers will respect, that will add cachet to your book, that will help your readers to think, okay, this person knows what they're doing, so-and-so wrote them a freaking foreword. You know, if that's something that you need, then definitely go for it. Keep in mind that a good percentage of very established thought leaders do not write their own forewords, which may be something that will have to be facilitated by you. Maybe not. But having written dozens of them, I can tell you that many do not write them. But you might have a very lovely person who is fine to write the foreword for you. You don't need it, though. So.
Okay.
Are you saying, and maybe that's a little further down the road, are you saying it's kind of like endorsements and stuff that sometimes you write it and then they read through it, make a few tweaks, and then put their name on it, kind of thing?
I'm not, yes, that does happen.
Okay.
But it's very often not the author, right?
Right.
Who write, you know, it's usually somebody's ghosting it. Sometimes, but this isn't always the case. Some people do write their own, you know. I can't tell you who did and who didn't, but
Right.
don't worry about it if you're not going to have a foreword.
Okay.
AJ, this is Indrani. In my case, would it be really, let me give you a video. Would it be really in your face to have an abused woman write a foreword?
Oh, wow. So you guys know what Indrani's book is about, right? Does anybody not know? Oh, Jeff doesn't know. Indrani, give Jeff your core message and what's up with your book.
Okay, I don't have it in front of me, but my core message is you have the right to create the life you want. And the promise is you read this book. I forget my promise.
So it's a long promise, but basically the story, Indrani has her own story, right? And then through that, I would say principles that she's going to be offering that help people, namely people who might be in compromised or abusive situations where they have compromised themselves, right? So, and she works with people who have been abused.
To bring them out of that
situation. And to provide them with, in her real life, also to provide them with tools so that the people who, not only just to leave, but people who have to stay.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's really, really powerful stuff.
And the
Oh.
promise says you can stay. And
Oh.
if you do a few things, you will break a few of those prison bars. That's a promise.
Yeah. Powerful,
Wow.
right?
Yeah, and tough. Ooh.
Tough, yeah. Good though, juicy.
Yes. Yes.
So
So
yes.
to have somebody who's read the book, who's been through, like I could have a person, and then they write from their heart.
Yeah.
I've been doing the work. I did this. You don't know me. And I didn't know me, but now I know me.
Yeah, I would say it's a definite yes on that, especially because the rest of your book is mostly your personal story. So it gives you that social proof, and it gives them a hope that you cannot provide in the first few pages.
And I don't want any celebrity putting their, I mean, it's not about you, and I don't give a shit what you think.
So you should do it, Indrani. Just think of who you might want it to be, and then we can talk if you want about how to help them write that.
Yeah. Yeah. I have quite a few people that I've been working with who would be happy and honored to do it.
Wonderful. I'm sure you all have more people than you realize. Then that's another thing you could think to do. You know, there's no reason why y'all also can't use use a person that is somehow maybe not known, but you know, but then you can also use their stories within. Hers is a unique situation because she doesn't have, the whole book is the story. So
the whole book is a story.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Is that good? You good, Indran? You're going to get on that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I like that. First I was thinking who, and then I wouldn't, and then it occurred to me, who better to showcase?
Yeah. And
a person who has broken.
Yeah. And they can write, you know, they don't have to share their name, you know, so.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Anyone else with questions? Really? Oh, wow. Okay.
How can we add more hours to this week to get this done?
Yeah.
You know what? You can do it. You can absolutely do it. Even if you are just halfway there, you know, you'll be surprised how quickly you can start making it happen. And I'm here for you guys. Post in the Facebook group if you want to do a rough outline. Remember I showed you it was the simplest thing, 1, 2, 3, 4. I mean, if you want to post in the Facebook group, okay, I think this is my outline. What do y'all think? Or you want to just send it to me and say, okay, I'm not really submitting my homework, but this is my pre-submission of homework. What are your thoughts? I will gladly give them to you. And it's a process, but if you don't start it, then you're going to start writing and not know where it goes. So, yes, Linda.
I'm sorry.
You don't have to be sorry.
My promise chapter is pretty easy to do. My next chapter is not so easy.
Okay.
Because if you're teaching something to someone that they don't know, they're all at different levels of they don't know.
Well, you have to start with the person that knows the least.
Okay.
Yeah. And I encourage you guys, you all have, you'd be surprised that many of you have a process and you may not realize that you do. So, think about it in terms of what people have to know first, next. I was convinced years ago that when the first person that said you should teach a class, I said, well, I don't know how to teach what I do. I don't have a process. And then I realized, it took me a few years to break it down, but yeah, I do have a process. So you probably have more of a process than you think. 1 second, Linda, I think Jamila was waiting first. Is that okay?
Yep.
Okay. Hey, Jamila.
Hi. So I'm a little confused on
exactly what needs to be in the outline. You gave us a few bullets, the forward, the intro, the chapters, the close. Is that what you're looking for in the,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
start with the content inventory. So do you have an example of something you can show us? How would the forward look? How would the intro look? Because I don't have a clue on what to do, how to get started.
Okay, so first of all, yeah, we're going to do intro and close. We're going to cover what is actually goes in them. But what I would like you to focus on is you probably have a process, right? That you want to take aspiring entrepreneurs through, right? So they can start their own business.
Yes.
Right. So what do they have to know first? What's the first thing they have to know and the first thing they have to do?
So I think to get those type of questions going in my head, those are the type of questions I need to start off with answering to get started.
Yeah.
Because that's good. Like I wasn't even thinking that in that direction. I'm just trying to figure out, okay, so I have an outline and I have these bullets, the forward, the intro, the chapters. How does that look?
So it looks like your process, basically. First of all, don't worry about the forward and the intro right now.
So what goes in the outline? Because you want us to send a draft outline. So
yeah.
what does that include?
So at a minimum, it includes your intro, but you're just going to write the word intro. So you don't have to know everything that's going to go in it.
Okay.
And then you're going to write my chapter 1. So it's probably going to be where you're going to state your core message and deliver on your promise. So, and then your chapter 2, since you have a process, is the first thing you're going to have them do. And your chapter 3 is going to be the next thing that they have to do. All the way until you've delivered on the promise, meaning they're ready, because your promise is you'll have the courage to start your own business. Right?
So basically, we're just outlining the chapters. Pretty much.
You're just saying, what are your chapters going to be?
The title for the title. Okay.
Yeah, and don't worry about if getting a fancy title. You're going to change it.
Yes.
Okay.
So just say what it is.
I got it.
Right?
Yep.
Now here's a little tip that Susan Sandler's not here, but this is one way I helped her because she was struggling with outline too. And the reason she's a little further ahead is simply because we're working together privately. But we met in person and what we did was we took the questions. So here's how you can use your reader profile. You did the questions and the concerns. We looked at her big questions that she did, and we turned them into chapters. And we just wrote the question as the chapter title. So you can do that. How do I this? What if that? You can just go right to your reader profile and pull the stuff off of Burning Questions, Chief Concerns. And some of them say so similar things, right? They mean close to the same thing. So you're not going to put them all, but you might say, oh yeah, that's it, so important. I have to answer that. Oh, I've got to answer that. You could just even start there. It's actually a super easy way to get into what are my big teaching points. Because remember, you want to answer their questions and help them find solutions to their problems and concerns, right? So if you're stuck, go right back to the work that you already did, because you already did good work on that. Is that helpful?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. And if you feel stuck, Jamila, just hit me up over email. I know you're so busy, but even if you want to shoot me an email, and then we're meeting Saturday, so we can go over it.
Perfect. Thank you.
You bet.
I just want to share something. I printed this off.
One quick thing, Gail. Sorry, Linda, you had a question. I wanted to.
It got answered.
It got answered. Okay, yes, you're up, Gail.
Okay, I printed this off, and my husband just brought it in. I have a checklist that I go through. I have it at the front of every single client's file, so that as our work progresses, I'm ticking off, making sure we've covered all of those different points. Now, for my clients, it's not always in the same formula. It's not always 1, 2, 3. So I have to make sure I do all of that. So just, I'm just looking at this going, oh my God, I can turn those into chapters.
100%. Yes, you can.
So it's just a checklist of what we already teach combined with the ideal reader questions.
Yeah.
And that's an outline.
Yeah. Basically.
So in the outline that we send you, do you want the stories? Do you want all the different colored Post-it?
Just tell me I'm sorry if I wasn't clear on that. Just tell me your chapter titles, whatever they are.
That's it.
That's it.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's a lot easier. I thought.
And then you're going to start on the content. If you have time to do the content inventory and start working on it, you can. But first, you're just going to send me that outline of this is chapter 1, this is chapter 2. I'd like to know what it is. So if it's an obtuse title, then I won't know what it is, right?
Right.
So that's why I say don't get fancy or clever with the titles. Just say, this is what I'm going to talk about. And Linda B, I know that you have a process you're going through with your clients. Again, your key teaching points is the stuff they must know, have to know. You have stuff that you have to start people with, because if they don't know that, then they can't move forward.
Some people miss the first 4 steps and end up on step 5, but you want me to do it as the most elementary level?
Yes. You can, it may turn out that you'll take the first 3 steps because they're super elementary and turn them into 1 chapter, right? You may do that later, but just get the process down.
Okay.
Anyone else with questions? Okay, so this is a lot of practice, guys. Okay, it's okay. It's going to be fine. I promise. You guys were a little daunted by core message, and now you're all rocking it out. So it's going to be use what you have. Use, like Gail has her checklist. You have processes you already use. Jamila, you know what you did to go from being an employee to being an entrepreneur and what it took for you. What was your process? Linda, you has a definite process that she takes people through. Jeff, you have a process that you work with clients. I know it's a little bit, you can't pin down exact order it maybe needs to be in. So for yours, it's probably principles, right? So it doesn't necessarily have to be first this, then that. It could just be, these are the principles that you need to understand in order for you to get to this place. But you all already have this. You just have to get it down. And you also have done the reader profile work. So you can just, if you get stuck, just go there and grab the stuff you already wrote down in Burning Questions, Chief Concerns, because I promise you, you're going to be answering and addressing those things in the book.
Multiple times,
yeah. So, all right, I hope this was, if you need more clarity, let me know. If I haven't communicated it well enough for you, please let me know. I appreciate your feedback, and I will be happy to clarify further.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, so on Thursday, we're going to be talking about marketing outlines. So this is the theme of the week, outlines. And I look forward to seeing you. But if you need me in the meantime, just raise your hand in the Facebook or sign up for a one-on-one.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yay, thank you guys.
Thank you, Jay.